This is a smart switch I bought on Amazon for around 20 bucks, and I want to use it for a project that involves feeding my cats. And as weird as this sounds right now, it's not for actually feeding the cats, but it's to inform us when the cats have been fed by someone. If this makes sense. I have to modify the firmware on this to use with my Home Assistant setup, which, I mean, it does use Tuya, which is a cloud platform, but honestly, if I don't need it, I kind of want to get rid of it. But there's literally no information about this chip. Like, there is a marking that says TYWE3S on it, which kind of suggests that this is an ESP chip, and of course it does look like an ESP chip, so that's kind of obvious. Let's not lose any more time here, and let's actually figure some stuff out here. I know for a fact that this is the 3.3 volt pin, this is the neutral pin, this is the neutral pin, and this is the 3.3 volt pin, because it's marked on the back here. And if I trace it with my meter here, if I trace this back now here, this is the 3.3 volt pin, and this is the neutral. So we already know those two pins, but what's with the rest? I need to make a backup of this firmware in case something goes wrong. And I know that those are the RX and the TX pins. So we now know how to flash this thing, and oh, and of course, this up here is actually the reset pin. There's no connection anywhere here. So we will have to make a connection from neutral to the reset pin in order for this to work. Hey, this is future me, and you're probably wondering why is everything in black and white. Well, I'm a dumbass, because I thought I had to use the reset pin to flash this thing, but I was completely wrong in that regard, because I need to short GPIO 0 to ground, not the reset pin. The reset pin literally resets the device, which, well, as the name suggests, I should have known that. But for some reason I actually remembered that wrong, and so, yeah, I will have to edit that out later. And yeah, so that's enough of future me. Just know that everything from this point on, me wondering why the device is not able to connect to my PC and stuff like that, I already know now. So you don't have to point it out in the comments. Because else we can't flash or read from the flash, which is kind of annoying. So we have to do that first. I've already set this up with Tuya and integrated it into my Home Assistant setup, but as said, I want to get rid of the cloud and try things a little bit different. And actually want to use Esporno on this, but there's no pre-made Esporno firmware, and I may have to use Tesmoda actually, because I have zero idea how to compile Esporno with custom stuff like this here, because this is, as far as I know, only a generic chip which is supported by Esporno or something like that. So yeah, I'm not too familiar with this thing, and I have to admit I'm far too much of a noob to actually do anything useful when it comes to programming. So yeah, so the first thing we have to do is actually solder some wires to this, because else we can't interface with it. And soldering onto those pins is going to be a little bit of a challenge, because they're super tiny and my solder skills are not that great actually. So let's heat up my soldering station here, which is some kind of broken and cheap solder station I used in school. And let's try to do some stuff here. So my soldering station is heated up and I have everything ready, including 4 wires, even though I only need 2, because we already have the voltage pins here laid out for us, and I can simply just stick a thing like this in here, which will work just fine. But I will have to solder some wires onto the RX and TX pins, which I will do now. And a fair warning here, my soldering skills are shit. Like, seriously, you would cringe at this, but it works. It never has failed me so far. I've never really learned it properly, but I've watched enough YouTube videos to know what's going on and what I have to do. So yeah, and my soldering station is shitty, so I will have to buy a new one, but I'm too lazy, and this one still somehow works, and even though it's already 5 or 6 years old, so who cares? I will start to solder now and shut up. Also, I'm just using like this thing here out of the tube, and it's not really great, so let's actually do some pre-tinning on the contacts here. And first let's put some solder on here. There we go. And there we go, there's some solder on here now, and let's do the same thing here. And nothing's shorted out, which is pretty nice. And on the reset pin we also need a wire, which we can short out later. To neutral, of course. So there's a solder blob on here, so let's prepare the wires, which should be easy enough. I've chosen to use white and blue for those wires, or no, actually I've chosen yellow and white, because those other two wires will be our voltage wires. So I also just used some cheap Chinese snips because they were included in my 3D printer and I don't want to waste some good snips here. So let's snip this off. Let's expose just a tiny little bit of here. Tiny little bit of wire, which is not the proper way to do this, but as said, it worked in the past and it will work now, I guess. So let's twist this together a little bit, and I know you should pre-tin and everything, but who cares? It's just a temporary thing. So this will be one pin here. Oh shit, and I bridged something here to the case, which is not great at all. Oh god. I bridged that pin to the case, which is neutral, and that's not at all great. Well, you know what? I've actually cleared the gap here now, or the bridge here now, but well, if it doesn't want to come off, let's just keep it on there and pretend that this never happened. It doesn't short anything out anymore, so who cares? So let's use the wire here now. And by the way, in real life this is super tiny, like on video this is probably super huge, even especially because I'm filming this in 4K. And yeah, this is not how you install a wire on here. But it actually works. So this is now connected, which is nice. So on to the next wire, which will be the yellow one. There we go. Let's also strip this a little bit here. There we go, this should be enough. Hopefully. Nothing should throw out, and I should be able to solder that now. There we go. So we now have our RX and TX pins here. And of course we also need the reset pin to read and write to this thing. And for the reset pin I'm simply going to use another wire like this. There we go. Just enough exposed so it does make contact. And let's solder this again. Of course, I said you should pre-tin those wires, but I'm not an expert at soldering and I'm using this as an excuse. There we go. That's not good on there. There we go. This should be holding for quite some time now. At least temporary. So let's try and connect this to my UART adapter here, which is basically a serial adapter. And we need those wires here, those blue wires as example, I'm using as ground here. And of course, if you connect this, make sure that you're using the 3.3 volt rail or the appropriate voltage for this chip, because I think not every ESP is actually 3.3 volts. I'm not quite sure on that, but just make sure you're using the right voltage and not fry your chip accidentally. So yeah, 3.3 volts, which goes into the back side here, like this. There you go, 3.3 volts. And of course, I'm using the orange wire for the positive voltage. Oh, wait a second, that's actually neutral, I'm an idiot. So this goes into neutral, sorry for that. The black wire is actually neutral on this. Let me check, yes, ground. So, the red wire actually goes into 3.3, there we go. So now everything's fine. And I have to figure out the proper pins again, which are RX and TX. So after a few minutes of research, I finally found which pins are which pins, and the upper one, the yellow one, is actually the TX pin, and the lower one is the RX pin, which I have to connect vice versa. So on my UART adapter here, TX goes to RX, which white is RX, so orange actually connects together here, like this. And if I don't accidentally stab myself with the other contacts here, the RX pin is the brown one, which goes to yellow. So there we go. This is connected. And the reset pin actually goes to ground. Oh shit, I bent it completely. So let's try this again. No, this doesn't work. So let's try and just shove it in here too. So let's actually give this a try now and plug it in, and hopefully everything will explode like it should go. Of course it shouldn't, but it would be a lot more fun, to be honest. So with the following command, we can actually read the flash, esptool.py flash ID. And if I press enter now, it should be connecting, hopefully. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's using the wrong COM port. Let me check here. It should be COM8, but it's flashing, so I guess it's using the right one. COM8, yeah. Why is it not working? Is it not able to read this chip? Do you have to use some other method to read this actually? Let me do some research.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Yeah, I'm actually a dumbass because I thought I'd need the reset pin to ground to actually flash this thing, but it turns out I need the GPIO 0 pin to flash this thing. Yeah, the name kind of suggested that, and I should have been a little bit more knowledgeable about that, which I wasn't. So here I am, redoing all the things that I did wrong here. And of course, the most annoying thing is the GPIO pin 0 is actually, let me try to show this pin right here, the fourth pin up to the ground. Like 1 is ground, 2, 3, 4. This is GPIO 0 here. So yeah, I will have to redo that, and well, this is going to be a pain in the ass to solder because my solder tip is not narrow enough to fit in there, I think. So let's desolder this again here. There we go. And let's try and solder the GPIO pin 4, and I'm not sure if you can see this well on camera, but it's already hard enough to solder, so getting this in focus is even harder. So let's try this. Can I get in here without damaging the switch? Yes, I can. So let's try this. This actually worked out, so let's hope I can use the blue wire here and put it where it should be this time. Oh god, this is so narrow here. There we go. So, this is connected. Actually easier than I thought. So, since this is done, I can now short this to ground. And of course connect everything back again, like the 3.3 volts here and the ground to ground. There we go. And this time I'm shorting the GPIO pin 0 to ground and not the reset pin. Which, as said, should have been obvious from the start. So let's wiggle this in here a little bit. There we go. And the upper pin is the TX pin, so the yellow wire is the TX, which should go to RX. RX is the brown wire. And the orange wire is the RX. So, if I now connect this to my PC, which I shall zoom out a little bit for this. There we go. Let's connect this. It's lighting up red and it's not flashing. You can't even see this. It's only lighting up red, which suggests that this thing has power now. And I should start recording on my desktop here too. And I shall switch to my desktop now. And as you can see, there were a few failed attempts to connect to this thing, but now it should actually do stuff. Connecting! There we go. Yes, now it works. So, hard resetting via RTS pin, which it doesn't work for some reason. I've had a few devices which this doesn't work. So, detect chip type is an ESP8266, which is quite common. The MAC address, which I'll probably blur out in post because, well, it's a MAC address. And yeah, now we can actually back up stuff with the following command here, which is ESP2. I don't need the port number because it just detects itself. Read flash 0x 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 0x. This is a 2 MB device, so yeah, 2 megabytes. So we shall use the second one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros. And why are there only 5 zeros at the start? Well, it should work anyways. We shall call this Smart Life one-way switch backup dot bin probably, and enter. So now it's connecting. Oh, and I have to, of course, yeah, I need to cancel this because I first have to unplug and replug this thing for it to work. And let's run the command again, because I said this didn't reset itself, and this is going to take a few minutes, so I'll be right back. So, a few days have gone past, and I've done a lot of research about this chip, and I found some stuff out which was surprising to me, and I also managed to flash ESP Easy on this and actually get a notification working on my phone. Now, I haven't figured out how to send this notification to other phones too without actually installing the Home Assistant app on each and every phone, because as of making this video, they have not included a way to limit other users to non-admin functions. You can create new users and set them to users in the user menu, but they're still allowed to make changes to Home Assistant, the whole tab, dashboards, and everything like that. And yeah, I don't want anyone to interfere with my Home Assistant setup, so that's not going to work as of now. I thought of sending a WhatsApp message from Home Assistant to all the phones, but this would cost me something because I would need their business API, which I don't want to pay just for feeding the cats, of course, and just sending a message now and then. So yeah, this is not going to work either. Now, I thought about using Telegram, and it would work. However, not everyone in our household uses Telegram, and just making a Telegram account for that is stupid. So yeah, for now, this project is probably just going to be a notification for my phone until I figure something better out than sending a notification via Home Assistant. But yeah, as of now, this will do. It's just a tiny little experiment, basically, and who cares? It's a fun thing. Anyway, so what did I do? I flashed ESP Easy on this thing and figured all the GPIO pins out. And what surprised me is that GPIO 0 is actually the one controlling the red LED here. And I will put up a little schematic I made, or is it a schematic? I'm not sure. But yeah, I'll just explain what each GPIO pin does here. And GPIO 0 controls the red LED. I think the fourth pin up here is, I'm not sure what exact GPIO pin this is, but you'll see it in the schematic I put up anyways. It's the blue LED, which I will also control once the button has been pressed. It will just light up the blue LED once and turn off, and maybe as a confirmation blink it a few times that the message arrived on the server and it went back to the button as a confirmation. Another thing that surprised me is that the button itself is actually connected to the RX pin up here, or basically the white cable. So if you short the white cable to ground, this is basically like a button press. And I can demonstrate this by using the same power bank I'm using to just power my camera here right now. So if I plug this in the right way around, the switch actually turns on and lights up red. And if I put my phone here right now and press the button, I will get a notification, as you can see, which is that I've fed the cats. So, this works already. This already works, but figuring all of that stuff out is a pain in the ass. So this is my Home Assistant setup, and as you can see, I've implemented a button here, which was pretty much unnecessary, but I still wanted to see when I press the button like I do right now, that this shortly turns on and turns off again. So, I wanted to give Node-RED a little test here, because I never used it before. So, basically what this does is it takes the state of the button, or basically the button press. If you look closely here at the off here at the bottom, if I press the button now, it takes that input and sends a notification to my phone, which is pretty basic, so nothing fancy going on here. It simply sends a message with that the cats have been fed. So, and this works perfectly fine. And if I look at the button here, it simply takes the button from Home Assistant, switch.katzenfutter. It should be exactly in the on state, so... Oh, no, sorry, the entity ID should be switch.katzenfutter, which is the exact entity ID. And since the if state is on, it only sends a notification one time. So, I could have done this with automations directly in Home Assistant, but I wanted to try Node-RED, and it works perfectly fine. So, if we now take a look at the ESP-easy firmware that I flashed onto this button, you can see that I've had to configure a controller here, which is the Home Assistant controller, and it sends the button presses to my Home Assistant setup via an MQTT message. And I also had to configure the buttons and everything, and the GPIO LED is on GPIO 0. And if we go to the Devices tab, you can see this is the switch input, which this is GPIO 3. It's a switch, a normal switch, and of course it sends it to the controller, which I want because then I can read it in Home Assistant. So, this is basically everything I had to do in here, and yeah, apart from figuring all the stuff out, figuring all the GPIO pins out, that is. Yeah, there was not much more to do, so I basically have a button that I can use via Wi-Fi now and do further stuff with Home Assistant, and yeah. So the last thing I have to do is to unsolder those wires again and put everything back into its enclosure. Inclusive the front plate, of course. I want to use that, of course, because it's a nice enclosure and everything, and I will probably have to 3D print a little shroud here, so nobody can accidentally touch the contacts in the back, which would be a little bit fatal. So, yeah, let's get right into soldering, and unsoldering those things is, or should be, pretty easy. Just touch the soldering iron onto those things and they come right off again. No solder required. So, there we go. All of those wires are removed and it's ready to be plugged back into the enclosure. There are a few little contacts here, which you have to be careful because you kind of have to bend them backwards. I'm not sure if you can see this, but it's a little blurry, but you can see the contacts at the back there. And you have to plug it in slightly first and then bend it. There we go. And snap everything in place here. So I'm actually going to use a little screwdriver here because this is not wanting to go back in there. But now it does. So that's in. That's into. So everything should be working again. Now for the front plate. And now we have a complete Wi-Fi button. So, this should now be working, and I need some cables to connect to the back here and give this thing a try again. The next part of this video has to do with a mains cable and mains voltage. Do not try to recreate anything I show here because I'm not an expert at all, I'm not an electrician, I'm just some guy, some random dude on YouTube and the internet, which just happens to know a little bit of electronics, but I'm not an electrician as said. So, do not do anything I show here. Inform yourself first, ask a friend who actually knows stuff like this, and now that's out of the way, let's actually start doing things, and let's connect the blue cable to the neutral. Let's open those contacts a little more, because I was not able to get the cables in there. Now I am, and let's close them off again. There we go. I hope I did not put those things on the isolator instead of the cables, but this actually seems to work now. So Of course, this is the earth, which we don't need in this case because this is not a metal case and there's no earth connection in it. But just in case you're doing a project which has an earth connection, connect this thing. Like, this is super important. Let's actually plug it in now and see if it blows up, because as said, I hate mains voltage and I never want to do projects with mains voltage, but this is one that actually requires it. So, and I don't need the solder station anymore. And let's plug it in and hope nothing blows up. Ugh. And it seems to work, so I'm not gonna touch it much because, as said, I have a lot of respect for mains voltage and I really don't want to be fried here. So, let's check on my phone if everything worked. And once I touch the button, I should get a message. There we go, it actually worked. This was a huge success and it actually does work now, so I have to figure out a way to make this a little bit more human friendly basically, because right now if you jank on the cable too much it will probably pop out and everything, and I really don't want that to happen. Anyways, yeah, this is basically the end of this project, and as said, the rest is software and I have to figure stuff out with Home Assistant, basically how to send a message and how to inform the family that the cats have been fed without them installing the Home Assistant app. So yeah, thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you liked this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a dislike. If you want to ask anything or have questions in general, leave them down in the comments below, and I hope I'll see you in the next video.